We go ahead with our afternoon press conferences here. We are joined by Carl Edwards, driver of the number 99 Subway Ford. Carl coming off a big win at Bristol last Sunday.
Yeah,
all but locked up a spot in this year's chase for the NASCAR Sprint Cup. So if you can open up talking about that win, how that affects your strategy going forward, knowing that you already have that.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing it does is take a lot of pressure off, and it allows us to go have a little bit more fun. And you know, I mean, that it's nice to be able to race like that. So you know, I had a good time racing last week. There was that last caution came out. There's a lot of pressure there. Fortunately, it rained, and we got the victory. And now, you know, come here to one of my favorite racetracks. It has to be one of the most fun tracks to drive on the circuit because the way the pavement is aged, the Goodyear tire, you can slide the car around quite a bit. And so we're just working on our Subway Ford, hoping we can get another victory this weekend.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll open up for questions. Please start with your name and affiliation. We can start right here with Brian.
Brian Nelson, Motor Racing Network, Carl. So last week after the victory, you were talking about how one win is not enough to guarantee you a spot in the chase. Our points, do you care about them at all now that you have a victory?
Well, of course. I mean, mathematically, we're not in the chase. I mean, if 26 guys win races, then the points are going to be pretty important. So we're aware of that, and so we're not on. We're not going to go crazy right now. We're going to kind of see how things go for the next month or so, and then once we really feel like we're locked in. Well, the easiest way for us to lock ourselves in is to go ahead and win this weekend, and then we'll be good. So, but once we're in that position, it'll be completely pressure free, which will be really nice. I forgot this is the first time I've been in the media center for a while, so that's another perk of winning. I get to talk to you guys.
Welcome back.
That's good. Yeah, glad to be back. Glad to be back in here with you.
We'll go Wolfgang, Rich.
I can't believe we didn't get free Subway for you guys this week. We worked on it. You stop by the hauler. There's a couple sandwiches left. They got some grease and stuff on them for the mechanics, but they're there if you guys want them. So I saw your hand go up pretty quick. So
we'll go Wolfgang, Rich, and Tom Jensen.
Carl, congratulations first for your win in Bristol last weekend. But you have no extreme other kind of speedway, small one to a big one. How important is the aero package for this kind of circuit?
Well, I mean, I was looking at that radar display you have at the end of the front straightaway here, and I mean, 207 miles per hour at the end of the straightaway. There is an immense amount of aerodynamic influence on the race cars. I'd say it's probably equal with the tires' influence on getting the car around the racetrack. So it's hugely important here. And I would have to say, after following Matt Kenseth around with his salvage vehicle or whatever he had there last week, I don't think that aero was a big factor at Bristol. So here it's huge. I'm not picking on his car particularly. It's just that the rear end was torn up really badly, and he was still really fast. I don't think he'd be able to do that here. The aero's a big deal in California.
Rich.
Rich Colbert, the Motor Racing Network. Carl, last year there was controversy between Joey Logano and Tony Stewart, and he ran him down below the white line. Not to talk about that incident, but what is the etiquette on let's say if you got 10 laps to go, last, I guess, 2 or 3 races, we've had a 10-lap dash to the finish. When you have a restart like that, what is the etiquette? Do you run somebody down there to block?
Let's see. You got the last restart. I don't think I've ever thought of the word etiquette in relation to that. I don't know if there is much. I mean, now especially. I mean, they ought to charge more for the seats down in turn 1 because it's. I mean, here they drop the green flag, and if one guy stumbles, if one guy shows a sign of weakness, and there's a lane. I mean, the track's, I don't know, 85 feet wide, plus a little bit of apron, plus some grass, and I mean, there's a lot of room to run here. So I don't know that there'll be any etiquette. There'll probably be people mad afterwards, and yeah. So it's going to be interesting.
One more question: should some of these races be shorter? They shortened this race some years ago.
No, longer is better. We were talking about that today. In my opinion, it's supposed to be a test of man and machine, and people pay good money for the tickets, and they ought to make an afternoon out of it. So to me, I don't know, I guess some people might be jaded that come to the racetrack every week and only think about going home. But for us racing, for me racing, I mean, to to finish a 500 mile or somewhere. I mean, that's special. I mean, that's what NASCAR is about to me. It's supposed to take a whole afternoon.
Hey, Carl, Tom Jensen, FoxSports.com. Congratulations on the Bristol win. What does this do for you momentum-wise heading into here? How much does it lift the team? And since it's so different, is there much carryover here?
I don't think there's a lot of carryover from Bristol. It's funny because we talked about that in the negative sense after practice. We thought, well, there's really no other track like this, so because we're so bad in practice, we thought, it really doesn't matter that we're that bad here. It's not a sign of how bad our team is. Then we went and won the race, so I guess we can't turn around and say, well, this is a sign that we've turned things around. I mean, we know that Bristol is a standalone, very unique racetrack, and we don't think there's much carryover. But it is huge from a team perspective that we were able to bring great cars there, and all our Fords were able to run so well. So it's a morale booster, but it's not going to make our cars faster here at California. We've got our California package has to stand on its own.
Alan?
Just looking ahead, two preview questions. Alan Cavana, NASCAR.com. First up, in Texas, last time you were there, you were on the pole, had a good car, then had engine trouble. So how do you think the team will turn around and be at Texas this year?
Yeah, we were pretty good at Texas. So hopefully we're good there again. Texas is a really fun place to run well. I mean, they gave away a rifle for winning the pole, and I mean, they always everything's a big deal there. It's a lot of fun. So I really like going there. Hopefully we run well. That track, I think, is going to be an indicator of how well you run it at a lot of the mile and a halves. Chicago, Homestead, obviously the second Texas race. That's a good track to run well at.
And we've seen knockout qualifying a few times now. Are you already thinking about Talladega and what that will be like?
Oh, man. No, that's going to be crazy. So, yeah, I don't know. Fortunately, your qualifying spot at Talladega is probably the least important qualifying spot of the year because it could be anything can happen in that. We'll actually probably tear up some cars, so that's the only thing we want to try to avoid. But I remember a couple times we knew that qualifying was going to be rained out, so practice time was important, and so basically it became a knockout qualifying session, and I mean it was insane. It was actually a lot of fun because you had to work with people, and then at the last minute you come to the start finish line, everybody scatter and try to beat everybody, and it was a lot of fun.
Nate?
Nate Ryan, USA Today Sports. Carl, when Jimmy Johnson was in here earlier, he was saying that one of the most unexpected aspects of the season has been how complicated the setups are with the new ride height stuff and everything like that.
Yeah.
Have you, now that you've practiced out here, are the setups a lot different? Are the cars driving different? How do you think it'll affect Fontana?
Mine does drive a little bit differently, and I think that's a function of the bumps. And I'll say I think that's a good thing. I think that, I mean, as terrible as my car as terrible as it feels to drive, I think it gives me a lot of room for for Jimmy Finnig to adjust on it, and then two, it gives me room to go run different lines. I mean, I think that you're going to see people migrating all over, and the harder they are to drive and the more touchy they are, I think it puts it more in the driver's hands. I think that's good, but it is very complicated. I've had to have things explained to me a couple of times so far this season just because of the way the front end geometry all works.
Brian?
Carl, Brian Belansky, RPMRadioNet.com. We've now done a super speedway, a short track, a mile and a half. Other than a road course, we've hit them all.
Yeah.
How do you feel about where you guys sit right now with your equipment going now that you've hit all those tracks and you kind of know what you've got?
I think we're real optimistic, but also we realize that we were not fast at Vegas, and we really have everybody at Roush Fenway's taken that very seriously, and we've worked very hard. Last week was nice, and Robbie Reiser pointed out, hey, we've got to really enjoy these wins, every single one of them, even though we know we have this project going on the side where we've got to be better at the mile and a halves. We do appreciate how well we ran at Bristol, but yeah, I guess to answer your question, we feel like we still need to be a lot better, and this track is going to be a good place for us to start and to really work on some things tomorrow and Sunday to try to be better at these big racetracks.
Okay.
Hey, Presto, Cars and Competition. Carl, you practiced in hot, sunny weather today. They're talking about cooler weather. How much is that going to change the performance of the car, and how much will your crew chief have to adjust on it for that?
The weather here is a big factor. The only thing that kind of negates that weather being a huge factor is that the tires fall off so much. So you get such a big swing in speed throughout the tire run that, at some point you'll overlap where you were with the weather and the other conditions. So it all matters is what I'm saying. And if the weather changes, even if it changed dramatically from when we practice to when we race. You can still use, I believe, because of the way the tires fall off, you can still use a lot of your practice information because of that. Right. Well, in practice, I'm not sure exactly what those guys were doing, but a lot of guys are at this track. This is the first track we've gone to where the tires are going to really fall off from the first round of knockout qualifying to the second. So you want to know what your car is going to do with the cooler tires. I think you might have seen guys doing that. Go out and run, make a run on stickers, come in, cool them off, and run them as if they put them put them so that they'll represent how the tires will be in the second round of knockout qualifying. And we didn't get a chance to do that. So if we make the first round, I don't really know how our car is going to handle the second round. So we probably should have been doing that. We ran out of time.
We're going to wrap up with Michael and then Dustin.
Carl, Michael Myers with Queers for Gears. I'm curious how this new qualifying system has changed your early week meetings versus the old system. Obviously, before maybe all of those early meetings in the week were focused on the race. How much of that is now developing on your strategy for qualifying?
We've been working more on our race cars. We have not worked as much as we probably should from a strategy perspective. At least the meetings I'm included on. Included in. So yeah, it hasn't changed for us, but I guarantee you, as the chase approaches and things get really pressure packed and it becomes extremely important, that there will be a lot of strategy discussed. And we're going to a lot of these tracks the first time, so we're kind of feeling it out still and taking data.
Dustin Long, MRN.com. So 4 races in, we get to Daytona, everybody's all excited. They want to see each other after the long off season. At what point do drivers start getting on each other's nerves, and how does that play out in the track? And is that are we to the point of not getting brakes cut at certain points, or how does that kind of ebb and flow throughout the season?
For me, it's been really good. In fact, last week, I was really grateful for the way that guys raced me towards the end of the race. I mean, Kurt, he was racing 2 wide with someone, and he went ahead and moved down a lane so that I could go 3 wide on the outside. Stuff like that I thought was that was really nice, and so yeah, I guess we're all still getting along really well from my perspective. We're bound to screw that up, but right now it's going great.